everyone, it's Annette. Welcome back to my channel. In my last two videos, I showed you a quick and easy way to draw simple flowers and add some watercolor to them, do some ink blending, some stamping, and they make beautiful, quick, easy cards. So in today's video, I am going to do the third card in that series. Like I said before, I am not a great artist. I love stamping because the art is already done for me. But I do know how to draw some simple flowers, and this particular flower goes back to when I was in the third grade. It was the very first flower I learned how to draw. And it's a hot mess, but it does come out to be like a flower, or it can be a firework if you make it into that. So I'm going to show you how I do this simple flower. Then we're going to add some watercolor to it, and we'll do some stamping and some ink blending, and it'll make a beautiful card in the end. And then stick around to the end because I'll show you the other two cards I made in the last two videos. So I'm going to start with using a Sharpie pen in black, and this is permanent ink because I'm adding watercolor to it. I don't want the ink to bleed. So here we go. This is the very first flower I learned how to make, and to me it looks like it would be a chrysanthemum or a mom, or it could be. But so all I do is it's just basically squiggles in a circle. So I just go around and around. It doesn't matter if they're lines, if they're rounded or pointy. That's it. And then I can draw a stem and maybe some leaves. Okay, like that. That's not really a great leaf, but it'll work. And we'll just put a couple things out here. All right, and we could even do another one, a smaller one. And it's kind of nice when they blend together or bleed together. And I'm gonna do one up here just to round it out. I like the uneven numbers. And down we go. Okay. All right. I mean, it doesn't get much simpler than that for me. So there's my flowers, but we're not done yet. We're going to make them come to life a little bit. So what I'm going to do next is add some watercolor. And as with my other two videos, I'm using the Art Philosophy Watercolor Confections Watercolor Pan Set in the Classics. And I'm just going to keep this card very simple. And I'm going to keep the black, and I'm going to use purple on this flower. So what I did ahead of time is I just took a spray bottle of water and sprayed my inks just to activate them, and you'll want to do that. You'll want to have 2 pots of water. One will be your dirty water, one water will stay clean. And then brushes. I'm using a number 6 round and a number 2 round. And I think what I will do is I'm going to wet my brush and then just tap it off, and I'm going to pick up some of this purple. Let's see, one looks more blue and this one looks more purple. And I'm actually just going to clear a spot off in this pan and drop it down because I want this to be very light, not real heavy. So I'm adding more water just to dilute it. Okay. And then all I'm going to do is wet my brush, pick up a little bit of paint, dab off some of it, and then I'm just going to go over some of these petals, not all of them, just random. Okay. And I might pick up a little bit more paint and make it a little more saturated, and we'll just go around. And you can go as light or dark as you want. Sometimes I pick up more paint and go in the center while it's still wet, and it'll bleed out. I like that. It'll just bleed out into the petals, and it'll just be what it is. And that always gives a nice soft look. And then this larger one. And you don't have to stay in the lines, which is really the nice thing here. Okay, and there I'm adding more of the darker color in the center. All right, I'm going to rinse off this brush, and then I'm going to go with my smaller brush, and I'm going to just add a little bit of green to these leaves. And I have some in here That's the nice thing. There's really no waste in watercolor because this is from an older project. It'll dry, but if you add water to it, that paint will reactivate. So this will dry and I can reactivate it later. And that's kind of what happened here. This was an older color that I used, and I just added water to reactivate it. And I just want a little bit. And I'm just going to add it to these leaves. And I'm just leaving some white space here as well. And I'll even do some of these stems up here. Okay. And that's that. All right, and let's just rinse off my brushes and put them in my drying stand. And then that's it for the watercolors. I'm just going to go set these aside. Now, I want to do some ink splattering on this, but I really want this to dry, so I'm going to bring in my heat tool and heat it up, and then I'll hit this and dry the ink, and it won't take that long. Okay. Let's see. Before we do the ink splattering, I am going to go ahead and blend out a frame, just ink blend around the perimeter of this card panel. I'm going to pull in some Gina K Wild Lilac. Right, I think that'll be a pretty complement to this. And I have a blending brush that I use for my purples. I don't know what color I was using before, but it was a shade of purple. So I'm just going to wipe it off, get most of it off, and then grab a Post-it note, and then I'm just going to ink blend around the edge here. Okay, just going to pick up some ink, and this is a new ink pad, so it's probably very saturated. So I'm just going to go in kind of light, and I'm going to start off the cardstock just to bring it in softly. I can always darken it up. Okay. And I'm going to go right over that flower, the stem. Now I'm going to show you, because I just made a little bit of a mistake, but that's okay. No worries. I didn't start off the cardstock. I started right on the cardstock, and you can kind of see it's a little heavier on that edge, but these are handmade cards. They're not going to be perfect. They're not going to be perfect, but they're going to be beautiful. And I can almost guarantee that the recipient isn't going to say, "Oh, they made a mistake here." Okay. You can even make it look intentional by doing it again on the other side, but I'm really not worried about those kind of things. All right. And that is that for the ink blending. And then right now you will see some variation here. It's a little darker, but this will smooth out and blend out once it's dry. Okay. And then the next step is I'm bringing in my ink splat box, which is just an old shipping box that I've cut out the sides a little bit on an angle. And then we're going to do some ink splotting, splotching, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to use Ranger's Distress ink in black soot. I've used this for all 3 of the cards in this series, but that's okay. I mean, you can use any color, like I said before. I'm just keeping this very simple. And then I'm going to take my smaller number 2 round brush, and I'm going to pick up some of that ink. I just added some water to thin it out, and then I'm just going to tap it and get some ink splotches down. Really adds something to the cards. And that's pretty much all you need to do. I'm going to rinse out my brush, get it on the drying block, and that, my friends, is the card. Now I do want to dry this as well before we do the next step, which is stamping the greeting. So let's bring in the Mini Misty. We're just going to do the stamping, and then we will put this card together. I'm going to just pop this up in the top corner, and I am going to tape it down just so it doesn't come up with the stamp. In case we have to stamp it again, I want it in the same exact spot. And then I'm going to be using a greeting from this set from Gina K Designs, and this is the Doodle Sayings Mini stamp set. And I think I will use, the last card I did, I said I've been thinking about you, and I think this one I'm going to use Hello Friend. Okay, and we'll just pop that right about here. Make sure it's straight. Looks good. Actually, that's a little crooked. When they're new, they kind of stick to everything, so just take your time with it. That looks better. And since it is new, it has the residue on it from the manufacturing process, so I'm just going to rub that off. Okay. Then I'm going to hit it with some Gina K black Onyx ink. Just going to tap it lightly. And I'm running out of space here. Yeah, you can still see that good. And then I'm just going to drop the door down lightly and give it a light press. We don't want to press hard because it'll just smush the stamp in and become a blob mess. So it's better to ink it lightly, press lightly, and do it again. Sometimes you have to do it 3 times, but that's the best way to get the most crisp greeting. And okay, where's my tool? Here it is. I have a waffle flower grit mat in my Mini Misty, and it's tacky and helps hold the cardstock down, but sometimes it's hard to get it off without some kind of pick tool. So this is what I use. It's just a generic pick tool that I got at my local craft center last year. All right, I'm gonna wipe the stamp off, and I am gonna put it away so I don't lose it. Okay, that put away. We're done with you. And then, all right. As with the other cards, I am going to put this onto a black mat. And again, this cardstock that I used here is Nina white cardstock in 65-pound weight, cut at 3 3¾ inch by 5 inch. The mat is just some black cardstock I had in my stash, 65-pound weight again, cut at 4 inches by 5¼ inch. And then when you center this, it gives a nice 1/4 inch border all the way around. So I'm just using a tape runner here to adhere this to the mat layer. Just get that down. And I just eyeball it the best I can, and then I look at it before I smush it down to adhere it, because you can easily lift it off at this point and reposition it, but that looks good. So I just like to turn over and give it a good burnish. And then the card base is again Nina solar white cardstock in 110-pound weight. It's a little heavier, so the card will stand up. And this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that's cut on the 8.5 side at 4¼ inch. So one sheet of paper will give you 2 card bases cut this way. And then I could have taken this over to my scoring board and scored it at 5.5, which is the halfway mark, but I didn't do that. And so what I'm going to do is just fold it over, meet the corners, smush it down. Let me get this ink out of the way. That's a disaster waiting to happen. You get this card to this point, and then you get ink on the card base. Anyway, this is a Teflon bone folder, and I'm just going to burnish that down. Let me really get that sealed up and make sure there's no ink on my hands. And then I will just adhere this down to the card base. There we go. All right. And again, I'm just looking. And there you go. There's card number 3. Very simple drawing. Just really, you should play with this technique because it's so easy to do. You just doodle doodle some squiggle lines all the way around. And that's this card for today. I want to show you the other two cards that I made in my previous two videos. This was the last one I made, and then this was the first one. So these three cards, super easy to do. I hope you give them a try. And I will take pictures and put them at the end of this video. You can always find my cards on my website, ascarddesign.com. You can find these cards and many others, including some sticker sheets there. And feel free to leave me a comment. Until next time, make it a great day.